Okay, splendid. So we're going to move straight on to the next session. This is Fighting the War on Amazon, why ecosystems are the next phase of retail. So I'm delighted now to welcome to the stage Managing Director of Retail Week, Chris Brooke-Carter, who we saw yesterday, of course, as well as Will Schuckberg. He is EVP, Chief Membership, Rakuten. Please welcome the pair of them. Thank you.
Well, it's great to be back on the stage. I hope everyone's having a great second day. And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Will this morning to get a bit more detail around Rakuten, the ecosystem model of businesses. It's not one that we're necessarily used to in the West. And understand, actually, how is this sort of model going to help retailers and this industry defend itself against the growth of businesses like Amazon. But will it be, I think it'll be very useful. A lot of people, I'm sure, have heard of Rakuten, but it is a business model, as I say, is not familiar to an awful lot of people in the UK and across Europe. It'd be really interesting to get an understanding better of the business itself.
Sure. So I'd be very interested if people have heard of Rakuten. It's not necessarily the most well-known name in Europe, but we're actually the 10th largest e-commerce business in the world. And to give you a sense of some of our scale, we operate in over 30 countries around the world. We have 1.2 billion customers, and we're effectively an ecosystem business. So we started off really inventing e-commerce in Japan. Our founder and CEO, Miki Mikitani, launched Rakuten in 1997 there, and then built out, really in an effort to compete against Amazon, which entered in 2000 to Japan, built out a number of other touch points to engage with our customers there. Today in Japan we have 99 million customers in a country of about 120 million, so pretty much everyone who can sort of touches one of our services. And globally those services now encompass financial services, messaging, e-readers, streaming TV. We have a marriage service business in Japan. We have agricultural businesses. We invest heavily in both startups and also other interesting tech businesses. We're the largest shareholder in Lyft and Pinterest, as an example. So a really wide business. That's easiest to explain by saying that what we try and do is find the largest number of touch points with our customers wherever they are around the world.
And strategically, what is the advantage of that? How are you leveraging those, what seems incredibly diverse set of assets to create commercial value?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting actually, and as when we were talking about this session and talking about how focused retailers are on Amazon in the West, really our business in parts came out of trying to compete with Amazon. As I say, they entered 3 years after we started in Japan. Same model they have everywhere of focusing on cash flow than profit. We've got a more traditional model where we need to make profit for our shareholders. And the benefit that we have is because we can get multiple touch points with our customers, we can understand them better, and therefore we can build better products. We can tailor those products to our customers, and then we can also lock them into that ecosystem with a common currency. So we have a very large #1 membership program in Japan. Obviously, Amazon have Prime, but we can deploy that membership program across a wide range of services. And really drive significant value. So in Japan alone, we give back about $2.5 billion to our consumers every year through that program because of the breadth of reach that we have.
So you described yourself earlier as an ecosystem business. Is that how the business sees itself? Is that how Miki would describe the business?
Yeah, so Miki's a genuinely fascinating entrepreneur, and he really thinks of the business as an innovation company, actually. So again, one of the bits that differentiates us from Amazon, and actually, really, if you look at any of the major sort of resale businesses coming from the East, the beasts from the East, if you like, Alibaba, Tencent, us, we have a different philosophy around retail. So Amazon is solely focused on the customer and do that amazingly. But they're also really focused on efficiency. And the whole idea was to create the everything store. So it was around essentially first-party retail of goods. And you can see how effective they've been at that. US in the last year, over 50% of product searches now start on Amazon rather than Google, for example. We have a different philosophy, and Mickey's philosophy is much more around shopping is entertainment, and that we should be creating and giving back to society. So we focus much more on, rather than just the customer, which is really quite controversial to say in the West because we've become so used to the Amazon approach of only focus on the customer. We focus on how to support that ecosystem. So we focus on making our services absolutely brilliant for our merchants as well as for our customers. And we don't try and get in the way of that. So for example, we've just launched a really innovative product which allows all of our marketplace customers in Japan to talk directly to the merchants anytime they want. We don't want to get in between that because we're there just to make our merchants successful. And actually, if you look at then how another company from the East is doing that, if you take WeChat, for example, if people go to Amazon to shop for products, actually people go to WeChat in China to live their lives. And it's as broad as that. They have 1 billion monthly active users, and those users spend, on average, 66 minutes on the app, doing everything that we do with our smartphones. So they are shopping, they are engaged in payment, they're watching movies, they are playing games, anything you can imagine, transport, anything that you do on your smartphone here today, by opening lots of different apps, WeChat keep you within that ecosystem. And that, I think, is a hugely powerful model.
I mean, I've heard you describe the business as a trading company, like the historical trading companies that existed in the Far East, centuries ago.
Yeah. So, and we look at that. We look at sort of the Grand Bazaar, and actually, I think, there's a really interesting question for businesses over here of what approach is going to prevail. Is it the first-party, customer-focused, incredible efficiency of Amazon, or is it more of a lifestyle engagement? Shopping can be fun, and we want to help people enjoy their lives model that's currently more dominant in the East. And I kind of suspect, actually, if you look back in history at what's happened, the place where the East and the West came together for ages in retail was the Grand Bazaar. Originated in Istanbul, the exact part where East and West come together, and the whole idea of that was bringing merchants, connecting them with customers, but doing so with huge theatre and excitement. And actually, I think there is a role for that in society. It's pretty dull. I think as our high street begins to significantly change and fade away in some ways, if all we focus on is efficiency.
Mm. So, look, the business has got an extraordinary foothold in Japan, but as of yet, Rakuten and indeed Alibaba and JD have yet really to make inroads into Western markets. Where are we along that journey? What are the barriers that you're helping to oversee Rakuten's push into international markets? What are the barriers that you're facing, and how do you foresee that progressing, I guess?
That's a very good question. So one of the barriers is just the different stage in evolution around technology that consumers are in. So if you look at particularly China, they skipped a whole level of technology. Even like beggars on the street now take payment through your mobile. That's how they do it. So it is entirely mobile focused. The UK, for example, is very significantly focused on mobile, and that's a massively growing trend, but it's not as ubiquitous in terms of how everyone, first place everyone goes to as Japan. So as Japan or China look to evolve our models into Western Europe, that's one of the things that we have to think through. And it's going to get even more complicated because actually, whilst the UK has been one of the leading mobile commerce countries around the world, we're actually going to be lagging behind when it comes to 5G, which will make a massive shift in how central the mobile will be again. If you look at US and Japan and China, 5G will roll out early next year. UK, there's some talk of maybe it being the beginning of 2020, but probably won't get full scale till 2022. So as businesses from the East are looking at how to conquer Western customers, that's one of the things that we've got to think through. But it's fairly clear where the intention is. If you look at Tencent, they recently announced they're spending $1 billion on building logistics capability in France. Alibaba have talked about opening about 5 different distribution centers at that kind of level each across Europe. And when we're in a stage where retail in Europe, which was and I think still is an absolutely amazing sector for us and really at the forefront globally, we're also entering a place where a lot of the sort of core retailers, the brands we know and love, are either really suffering from being overly leveraged, potentially as a result of private equity ownership, or have got public ownership that makes it very difficult to invest to the degree that perhaps they need to really revolutionize their technology infrastructure. So businesses from the East, I think, see a huge opportunity there, but it's how do you also make sure you don't get too far ahead of the customer?
Yeah. So why are you, the likes of Alibaba, any less of a threat to the people in this room than Amazon? Why would the industry partner with Rakuten, as opposed to selling through Amazon and continuing to struggle with that relationship? What is going to be
sure? So I probably won't try and talk for Alibaba and Tencent, etc. But I can talk about Rakuten. So I'd say we have at the core of our mindset has always been partnership. So the partnership and discovery. So we helped with our initial e-commerce business in Japan. We basically helped Japanese customers discover small local merchants through our marketplace. And I talked about how we're very focused on just connecting those players. And we've realized that to grow, we need to have as many touch points to make our customers' lives as relevant as possible. And that's also super cost effective for anyone involved in that because it's much easier to cross-sell a customer than acquire them net new. So as we're looking at our strategy overseas, and we already have some significant presence overseas. We've got, just in the UK, 3 million customers for Rakuten TV. Kobo, our e-reader, is a really scale player over here as well. But as we're looking at how to be really relevant for customers, we're realizing that there's an opportunity to partner with other businesses who have scale relationships with customers over here, in the US and in Western Europe, but potentially are trying to change the nature of that relationship. And this goes back to, I think, what the businesses in China have done really well, which is turn their businesses much more into lifestyle businesses. And increasingly, we see an opportunity for businesses who are, maybe providing insurance, financial services, whatever it is, some have limited engagement touch points to widen the relationship with the consumer. Well, we're really set up to help businesses with some of our content broaden those relationships.
And we talked about a lot about partnerships, but it seems to me the industry still hasn't really understood what a great partnership looks like. You've described it in the past as an art form. Really great partnerships are an art form.
Yep.
So, what does a great partnership look like? How will this actually play out?
Yeah, so it is. I think you're entirely right. It's an art form. It's definitely not a science, and it usually goes to the heart of what I think makes business work, which is the people. You have to have a common understanding. They're old adages, but they're really difficult to do in business. You want it to work for both parties, and generally, if you're both big businesses, that's quite difficult because there are a lot of big egos involved. There are a lot of challenges around brands. There are a lot of challenges over customer ownership. People are wanting to do the best thing for their customers, and it's quite a difficult leap to then start thinking about them as our customers. And frankly, the only way to get there is by putting the groundwork in to make sure that you've really understood who contributes, what's the relationship, and what the ground rules are, and really only by putting the customer at the center of it.
Do you think that traditional retail businesses in the UK and in Europe should be looking to acquire different business assets in the same way that as I say, Rakuten have got a TV, it's got a marriage business, it's got a payments business. Should they, apart from obviously considering partnering with yourselves, should they also be looking to acquire businesses that they would never have considered looking to acquire in the past?
So I think the retail landscape has been fundamentally changed by Amazon. I think it will be fundamentally changed by some of the other players I've mentioned as well, just because of the sheer scale of what they do. And also because mobile in particular has really changed how customers choose to interact, and it's made it far more seamless to move between multiple different services without you yourself moving. And therefore, I do think ecosystems are going to be how businesses compete. If you are an electronics retailer, sure there will be, and Richer Sounds is a great example, there will be some businesses that manage to survive just because they are providing unbelievably brilliant service in their particular area. But on a mass scale, everyone else is going to be destroyed by those other businesses in that kind of sector. So figuring out how can you defend against that, and how can you continue to have multiple opportunities to speak and build relationships with your customers is going to be really important. And I think that's going to be won by people who can have multiple touch points. They may lose a customer for one or two of those, but they can shift them around the ecosystem.
Right, great. So I think we've got a couple of minutes to take some questions. Just looking at the questions on Slido now. There's a couple of where do you see Rakuten in the next 5 years? What's the vision then?
Yeah, so you asked me earlier, and I didn't quite answer the question. How would Mickey describe the company?
Yeah.
He describes us as an innovation business, and that essentially we're trying to give value back to everyone in society by innovating how business works and innovating services that are driven to consumers. One of the really amazing areas he's taken us in as a direction is applying some of that same thinking and some of the approaches we've had to areas like cancer treatment. So we have two absolutely groundbreaking cancer treatment businesses, one of which really focuses on photoimmunotherapy and is genuinely revolutionizing how that treatment works. And again, Mickey's, this is part of his legacy. He's really not looking to exploit that from a financial position. He sadly lost his father to cancer, but is trying to figure out how he can leverage Rakuten assets like the 1.2 billion customers to really help society in that way by spreading knowledge and take up of these kind of treatments. So I think you'll see us move in some of those directions as well, but then obviously trying to get a large footprint internationally and constantly try and evolve into new services.
And so how do you differentiate from Alibaba as opposed to just being a sort of in the shadow of the giant?
Yeah, I was going to say we're a little bit smaller is one way we need, unfortunately, even though we're 10th largest. Look, I think we would say we bring a bunch of Japanese characteristics to what we do. We have a real focus on omotenashi, which is the Japanese culture of really putting service at the front of the heart of everything you do. That runs throughout the business, so we really are focused on giving brilliant customer experience. And partnership, being very respectful to everyone in the system as well. Not saying that's not necessarily where some of those other businesses are, but I think it's something where some of our core characteristics as a business differentiate us.
And perhaps as we come to the end of the session, there's a question here around what do you think the single most important technology trend is that's hit the retail sector, or indeed going to change the retail sector over the next couple of years as well? Because you've got such a broad view of everything, I guess, with so many different business lines.
Yeah, so I mean, we genuinely are I don't think a retailer cannot be a tech company these days. So we spend, a massive amount on AI, augmented reality, all the sort of things that have been discussed during this conference. I'm always a big believer that the stuff that maybe doesn't seem the sexiest at the time is the stuff that probably will affect us most in the next few years. I think two things that will have a massive impact are 5G. I think it's very easy to underestimate, and I'm really sad that we're not going to be at the forefront rolling that out in the UK. It will just transform how much that is the central and only real link into people's lives. And I think the second piece that will continue to have a massive impact is logistics. I think any retailer who doesn't think they're in the logistics business is probably not going to be a key competitor in a few years' time. We didn't think we were. We've had to change our mind significantly on that. We're now investing billions into developing our own logistics capability rather than just working with third parties. But I think how logistics evolves from a technology landscape will change pretty significantly in the next few years.
Great. Thank you very much. Will, thank you very much for joining us. It's been fascinating to talk to you, and we could have gone on for ages. But a huge round of applause, please, for Will Sjoberg.
Thanks a lot.
Great stuff.